it's just kind of funny that a site that aggregates data is what bolstered this song's sort of launching moment when it's a piss take on the idea of data collection. There's just a Russian nesting doll of irony, I think, that goes along with all of that. So.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John, his name is Andy. Libraries gave us power, then work came and made us free. What price now for a shallow piece of dignity? More on that later. But first, Andy, what have you got in store for us today?
I would like to bring a band to the channel called Big Data. And the track by them that I'd like you to listen to is a track called Dangerous. You've got no prior experience listening to the sounds of Big Data, do you?
No.
Excellent. Okay, great. Well, let today be your first dalliance into their sound. Please go off, give Dangerous a listen, and come back and let us know what you think.
Okay, interesting start. You got this motorcycle exhaust of a bass line, and then in comes percussion, and it does sound very studio based. There doesn't sound like a awful lot of human element to this, which is okay, but it gives it that sort of really clinical coldness to it, which I think is perhaps one of the things they're going for, because the vocals start, and it's got that sort of slightly knowing, slightly tortured vocals, like and again, some of the subject matter, they're out to get you, sort of thing. But you kind of also get this feeling that the sort of person that really revels in these situations and puts themselves in them as much as possible. I'm not saying they pay for this service in any way, but could be. And all of this gives it quite an 80s feel to the sort of emotional, I wouldn't say plasticness of it, but it's kind of that way, which isn't a terrible thing. It doesn't float my boat particularly, but a lot of people it does. And this sounds like a good execution of it. We'll see how it goes from here. Oh, that sounded, I shouldn't have stopped it. Just there's the bit there, like tom work coming in. It kind of remind me of, is it Some Like It Hot by the Power Station? God awful. They did a really bad cover of Get It On. Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, stop thinking about that, because that was terrible. But yeah, I'm going to go back a bit, because it sounded like the vocal register went up. Is this a chorus or whatever? This down. They've been watching all my windows. They gathered up a warrant 'cause they else going on there. I don't want to do you think I was standing really particularly down on this track, because I'm not. I'm quite enjoying it, but it's not a thing I would reach for again and again. But there's little touches in there. So that vocal melody sounded really familiar. I'm failing big time to remember what stuff is reminding me of. Hopefully I'll find my way home tomorrow, but you never know. So there's that. Yeah, there's all this sort of like what I call like snap, crackle, and pop of the sort of synths, all over the place, which is quite pleasant. And then you got that bound, bound, which just always reminds me of Thomas Dolby, Hyperactive. And I love that to bits. So yeah, there's bits in there that make me smile, actually. I guess that must have been the chorus. Quite catchy as well.
How could they know what I've been thinking? Like they're right inside my head because they know. Because they know what I've been hiding. They're right under my bed, they're on patrol. Here they come, yeah, here they come. Out of the shadows. To take me to the court because they know.
I was kind of...
Shut this down.
So all these little like patches coming in, percussion and the sort of hand claps and stuff, and yeah, it's funny. I think I don't know. They're just trying to sprinkle bits in there that will grab people's attention. It's just sounding more and more clinical to me and less human, which means I'm not really engaging with the message of him, that the narrator sort of worried about people all around and how dangerous he is. Yeah.
They've been watching all my windows. They gathered up a warrant 'cause I've gotta get out of here.
That's more interesting.
Slip down into the dark. Keep on alive.
Not so much. For this is hilarious. So that slowed down bit was really interesting. I got this visual image of someone being like caught in a giant spider's web and just stretching against it. I think they could have done more with it, and then back came and the beats came back in on the bass line. And compared to that little bit, it sounded really crass. Just my opinion. But this bit here, this tinkling, I'm just picturing Rick Wakeman with his cape. It's again really out of place, but quite interesting why they chose to do it. I like it actually.
Nobody's listening when we're alone. Nobody's listening. There's nobody listening. No one can hear us when we're
Interesting. Interesting. I know that line in, but you didn't know someone could love you this much, and I didn't really get a sense of big love out of this. Um, yeah, I mean, in terms of this sort of like creeping, sense of jeopardy, they got that definitely, and this sort of clinicalness, definitely. Um, so some things were a big tick, and I did actually really like that Rick Wakeman bit. It just cascading down, and the sort of spidey webby stretchy bit as well. I thought some of the other bits were just a bit too studio-y, clinical for me, and lacking a bit of a human touch. But that's just me. I bet this is really popular. I could see this being really popular. Bizarrely, and this is another one of those, well, this doesn't really sound like this, but I tell you one of the songs that just popped into my head listening to this, which doesn't sound anything like it, but kind of I got the same feeling from, was I hesitate to say this, but I'm gonna Obsession by An Emotion. It's got that same sort of depth of feeling, I think. But yeah, it has its place. Yeah, don't want to sound like I'm too down on this because this was entertaining, definitely. I just don't think I could listen to this many times. It would be a very occasional listen. But yeah, let's find out some more about big data. Let's go back and chew it up with Andy.
All right, my friend, what you have to say?
So, so it begins. There's this motorcycle exhaust bass line belching its way through the song. And it's joined by percussion. And after a little while, I'm not sure, but it sounds to me like this percussion is created by clicks of a mouse and the pushing of buttons rather than a human. It has a overall sort of quite a clinical studio style that gives it, for me, quite an 80s feel. The vocals begin. How could you know? How could you know? And the mercury rises a couple of notches in the 80s thermometer. Um, it got that vocals. It didn't sound dated, but it's got that attitude with it that has a feel that's slightly knowing, but also slightly tortured vocals. But you get a feeling that they could have also paid for this sort of service. Someone comes alive when their fears are realized and kind of enjoys it a little bit. I'm catching some of the lyrics. Now they're coming from the shadows. Which, there's additional wood block and what I call trash can percussion, all this sort of tom work that's all sort of manipulated and slightly echoey and stuff, which again has more sort of 80s studio magic. And it reminded me, I doubt you'd have heard of this, but there was a super group that weren't super, called the Power Station. They were named after a New York New York Records studio, I believe. And it featured Robert Palmer, if I'm not mistaken, and a couple of guys from Duran Duran. And they did a god awful version of Get On by T Rex. And they did another song called Some Like It Hot. And the drums in that just were unbelievably. They were played by one of the Taylor guys, I think, from Duran Duran, but they sounded, like they come from a ZX Spectrum or something. They were awful. But anyway, we'll gloss over that. But it just reminded me a little bit of this, that sort of comes in there, sort of patched in, and it just made me giggle every time. And it's not these guys' fault. It just made me giggle. So the chorus comes in, and there's more subtle touches here. There are kind of little nods to various things that, well, I think they are. Perhaps this guy or people who did it never even heard of the Power Station or Thomas Dolby. I hope they have, because there's a touch of Dolby's work in there. So you get these higher register vocals that are singing, you understand they've got a plan for us. I bet you didn't know that I was dangerous. Um, that melody, that vocal melody is really familiar, but I'm not doing very well in memory location today, and I still can't think who it is. I'll tell you who it isn't. It isn't Michael Jackson singing "He's Dangerous." That's for certain. Um, and over this, we're getting the keyboard version of like snap, crackle, and pop, all these little things like popping away, these little notes and everything, which is quite interesting. And then I think at the beginning, but definitely at the end, you get this, I don't know what you call it. I'm going to call it a double hit synth bounce. It's a bow sort of thing, bow, bow, and it kind of expands and contracts the note on itself. Um, there must be something in the natural world that does that. I don't know, Venus flytrap or something. I don't know, but it's interesting, and that really reminded me of Thomas Dolby Hyperactive, which I absolutely adored, and actually played the 7 inch till it was dead as a dodo. So anyway, it comes out of that, and then we drop down into the second verse. Has to be quiet now because they're definitely listening in. The authority. Um, they snake their way through the same sort of territory of these patched in incidents, mainly percussion that sort of go there. And then we get to this sort of stretched section, I think I'll call it. It was fairly brief, but for the moment when it starts, it sort of slows down and these the vocals sort of expand out slowly, become more airy. It made me think of somebody that's straining as they're caught in a giant spider's web and they're just straining against the tension. Um, I was thinking that was a really nice image. And then the sort of spell's broken as the backing vocals start singing Keep On Running and the sort of bass and motorcycle, the motorcycle bass and the beat come back in and sort of break that image for a second. But it's a really nice little moment that is in the song. Then we go back into another chorus who's declaring that, the narrator is Captain Dangerous. And then we get interrupted by this. I think the chorus is cut a little bit short. I could be wrong here. But then we get this positively Rick Wakeman like keyboard cascade. And I can almost picture him there in his cape. Um, and I had to pull it back because it seemed absolutely ridiculous the first time I heard it. And then I had the second time I heard it, I thought, actually, this is probably my favorite bit of the song. It was really not, it worked, It's just the shock of it the first time, I think. And it was just really nice. And then it shoehorns back into the previous section before, I think, where they're sort of leading up to the cobweb moment, as I call it. And then we go back into the chorus again, and then the song finishes. So I think musically overall is fairly sort of simple. It did feel like this studio produced thing. I could see this being really popular, particularly stateside. It has a kind of American feel to me, and some of that 80s flavor. Now, for some reason, and this is another one where what I'm thinking of sounds nothing like this song, but it reminded me of that 80s tune, Obsession by Animotion, and I don't know why. And it made me chuckle just even thinking about it because it's so different. But I think what it is I didn't really buy into this sort of emotional intent of this song. There's like paranoia and stuff like that. And that's the bit which didn't really get to me. And I think it's the same with that animation, the approach to it. However, it was decent enough song. I was interested. You said about a song previously. And I generally wrote this down. I'd start to find this rating after about 3 listens, which is really interesting because you said the same thing about you didn't know how often you could listen to another song. And it's, again, it's the same thing. I was absolutely fine listening to this, but I could picture myself 3 or 4 times later going, yeah, I've had enough of it now. It's one of those. So I completely got what you said about the other one, and this is the same thing for me. So this is really interesting because I've got a feeling that this is fairly contemporary, but they were definitely going for an older sound, as it were. And again, I think this sound, I think for some reason taps more into the American market than something like the British market. I could be wrong. You could tell me they're from Dagenham, but highly doubt it.
I could, but I won't because they're not. So
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on it. I do appreciate it. Big Data is an American electronic music project created by producer Alan Wilkes. And Wilkes began recording for Big Data in the summer of 2012. So you are right, it is somewhat contemporary. The name of the project was a reference to a big data collection on the internet by the sites such as Facebook, X, and other large social media entities. Much of his songs were thematically related to digital technology, which also explains just the overall sound and the sort of digital assembly of
Yeah,
the music.
yeah,
So
that all checks out. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. This is what happens when you give like future Silicon Valley people or those who were surrounded by future Silicon Valley people the keys to the recording studio and everything. You know what I mean? They're sort of thinking in that vein because Wilkes, who was an English major at Harvard, witnessed the birth of Facebook, a big inspiration for his music. I got the idea, this is a quote from him, I got the idea for the name at a friend's wedding who was a data scientist and worked at Facebook in its early days and then went on to co-found a big data company called Cloudera, which is such a I mean, that is the most quintessential
these
Silicon Valley.
very different circles, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah,
Very
exactly.
different circles from yours or mine. Wow.
He said all of this in an interview with USA Today. At the time, big data wasn't as ubiquitous a term as it is now. But as soon as I decided on the name, the lyrics really started writing themselves. My music was dark and electronic, but I hadn't started writing about the NSA watching just yet. Wilkes initially collaborated with Daniel Armbruster of Joywave, while the latter was traveling from Rochester to New York City for tours, with Wilkes composing the music and Armbruster writing lyrics. After changes to Joywave's touring schedule, Armbruster parted and Big Data became a solo project. Big Data's first EP, 1.0, as I think you saw on the thumbnail, was released on October 1st, 2013 on Wilkes's own Wilkesets label, featuring the songs The Stroke of Return, Dangerous that we listened to today, Big Data, and Bombs Over Brooklyn. In early 2013, they also released a remix EP, 1.5, which included 8 remixes of the song Dangerous. If you want to talk about not being able to deal with 3 or 4, imagine 8 all reimagined, including one by Joywave. Another remix EP, 1.6, was released in late September of 2014 and included 7 remixes of Dangerous. So there's something tongue-in-cheek about all of this. This is how software companies release and rebrand the next iteration of the last thing that they created with a few or several updates made to the existing platform, right? Like you get Windows 7 and 11 and you get 1.2 versus 1.3. This is working in the field that I work in, which is just a small microcosm of this, is like digital education and online learning and all of the platforms and softwares that are created or integrated into pre-existing systems and all of these stupid updates that go on or all of these the research and development team have rebranded our new platform. It's now called the same thing but 1.1 or something. It's just so pretentious and ridiculous, and I think he's kind of having fun with that with sort of that culture over there, you know what I mean, with these Silicon Valleyites and all their software creation and rebranding. Big Data's first studio album, 2.0, which again is funny because the 1.1s lead to the whole new thing, which is 2.0, was released on March 20th of 2015. The album featured collaborations with several vocalists, including Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, on the track Snowed In. A second album, you guessed it, 3.0, was released July 26th of 2019. Big Data is best known for its single Dangerous, featuring the one featuring Joywave is really what took off. It reached #1 on the Billboard Alternative Songs chart in August of 2014 and was certified gold in Canada and certified platinum by the RIAA here in the States. The song has been described as a catchy dance floor friendly electronic song that explores the anxieties of oversharing personal information online, with a particularly striking feature being its darkly playful lyrics that warn about the potential dangers of the internet, while still maintaining an upbeat, infectious sound, thanks largely to the vocals from Joywave's Daniel Armbruster. It's considered a clever and accessible commentary on the digital age, making it a breakout hit for the project. Ironically, within 24 hours of premiering Dangerous on the internet, it became #1 on Hype Machine, a site that tracks musical bloggers' content. So it seems that Wilkes had the whole idea of the internet down pat. It's just kind of funny that a site that aggregates data is what bolstered this song's sort of launching moment when it's a piss take on the idea of data collection. There's just a Russian nesting doll of irony, I think, that goes along with all of that. So, yeah, let's get into these lyrics that you touched on earlier and caught a decent amount of. How could you know? How could you know that those were my eyes peeping through the floor? It's like they know. It's like they know I'm looking from the outside and creeping to the door. It's like they know. Now they're coming. Yeah, now they're coming out of the shadows to take me to the court because they know. Gotta shut this down because they've been watching all my windows. They gathered up a warrant because yeah, I understand. I got a plan for us. I bet you didn't know that I was dangerous. I must be fate. I found a place for us. I bet you didn't know someone could love you this much. How could they know? How could they know what I've been thinking? They're like right inside my head because they know what I've been hiding. They're right under my bed. They're on patrol. Here they come. Yeah, here they come out of the shadows to take me to the court because they know. Gotta shut this down. Because they've been watching all my windows. They've gathered up a warrant because I've gotta get out of here. Slip down into the dark. Keep on running. I've got to get out of here. I'm running. Slip down into the dark. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, understand. I got a plan for us. I bet you didn't know that I was dangerous. It must be fate. I found a place for us. I bet you didn't know someone could love you this much. Nobody's listening when when we're alone. Nobody's listening. There's nobody listening. No one can hear us when we're alone. No one can hear us. No one can hear us. I've got to get out of here. Slip down into the dark. Keep on running. I've got to get out of here. Keep on running. Slip down into the dark. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, understand. I got a plan for us. I bet they didn't know. I bet you didn't know that I was dangerous. It must be fate. I found a place for us. I bet you didn't know someone could love you this much. So the song speaks to paranoia, first and foremost, both externally caused and internally generated. So the external being a sense of observation that the narrator is being watched by persons unknown against crimes also unknown, and the idea of being prepared to run for shelter, taking loved ones along. Alternatively, the internally generated paranoia reading of the lyrics speaks to delusion, possibly the narration of a stalker who is mistakenly self-convinced the object of his obsession will be pleased by the narrator's interest. So it's got this, you can take it two ways. You can take it on this social commentary about big tech and the gathering of personal information and what can possibly be done with that, this big brother type thing, or also this dark, lascivious kind of stalkery vibe that we've actually covered on a few songs in the past, this idea of, you know, an unhealthy mental relationship with the object of one's you know, desire or obsession. So and yeah, I'm glad you gave this thing a listen. You know, I'm not 100% sold that you absolutely adored it or anything, but I think you caught the redeeming qualities of it. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it, my friend. So thank you. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you made of this track, Dangerous by Big Data. If it reminded you of anything, if it harkened back to this 80s sound that John, I think, aptly caught on to and mentioned in his synopsis of the listen, please, whatever you want to share, just drop it down in the comments field below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you'd be so inclined. It really does help us drum up numbers over here at the channel, and we are forever grateful. So thank you so much. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next episode of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.